Why did you have to wait 6 years to get Terry? Did you hear he was really bad?
No. No. Daddy and I went through tests right away after we were married, practically. We wanted kids so bad, and the test didn't prove to be worth anything.
What do you mean? Was it like one of you guys not able to...
Well, that's what we thought. We went to a specialist. He happened to be a friend of the Pizzold family, so he didn't charge us. But he was up in the Michigan Avenue.
Was that where the fancy doctors were?
Yeah. He was Dr. Atkinson was his name. And he told us what to do, and we did it, and
the rhythm method, kind of...
Something like
stuff
that.
Like that. Mm-hmm.
And didn't work out. And then we went to Michigan, it seemed to me. We went to Michigan for... Granddaddy had that territory open up when we went to Michigan. Or maybe it was Minnesota first, and then we went to Michigan. And by that time, about 3 years had gone by. And so we applied. We thought we were going to stay in Michigan. We applied at a orphanage home to put our name in there, so that we would just move up on the list as the time went by. And Borgia something was the name of the place. Lucretia Borgia. And then we were shifted back to Chicago.
You mean by the job?
Yeah, by the job. So we had to cancel.
Oh, so you got
that adoption.
Moved up on the list, and then...
Yeah, we moved back to Chicago. And we applied at St. Vincent's, but they said they could use the information that they had taken in Michigan. So that helped us quite a bit. So I, being so anxious for children, I wanted to be where children were. So at the time I wasn't working, so I went to work at St. Vincent's. It about broke my heart to be working there, trying to put shoes on the little kids' feet that didn't fit. Just tried to put them on. The kids could not get out of the beds. They had to stay in the beds. And if you wanted to make any contact with them, you had to go up to the bed and hug them and talk to them and so forth.
How old were they had to stay in the beds?
They were 2, 3 years old.
All day they stayed in the beds?
They had to stay in the beds. There was no place for them in this facility.
Was this the same place you found me eventually?
Yeah, all of your kids came from the same place.
Oh, man.
And I worked there on one floor, and there was one baby I remember that I saw for a short length of time, and I am positive that was Terry. And he was on his stomach, you know. His little knees were really rubbed raw from the sheets, evidently. The sheets were washed in such hot water, and probably had a kind of a rough detergent. And I remembered taking care of that little baby for a little while. And of course, I didn't stay with that baby. I just saw him standing. He was in a little bassinet out in the hall. And then I'd feed the other ones that I was in charge of. Pureed everything. Everything was pureed. And nothing solid. And after a week or two, I'd had it. It made me sick to my stomach to take care of these and see these little kids like that. And shortly after that, we were called. And I am firmly convinced that that little baby that I saw was Terry.
Well, how old was Terry when you snatched him up out of there?
He was 6 weeks, 5 weeks. Connie was 6 weeks. And he was 5 weeks.
So it could have been Terry.
It could have been Terry, yes. Very well, very likely. So, and it was on April Fool's Day. We got him, and I was so excited. I was so excited. I couldn't sit still. I went around. We lived in a big apartment building over there near Beverly Hills, and I rapped on everybody's door. We got our baby. We got our baby. We got her. Everybody knew that we had planned for it, but Daddy was out of town prior to that. And I'd gotten the message to come down, that we were supposed to come down to the hospital there and choose our baby. And we had a little penguin light that we had in his room, that was set in his room. The crib was all ready in the room, and everything was, diapers, everything, we had everything ready. And we had this little penguin light there. And Daddy came home, and he didn't know anything about this letter that we received, and I lit that penguin light. And he came past that room and saw that light. He says, "Don't tell me." I'm going to cry. He says, "Don't tell me we heard." I says, "Yes, we did."
You went and got the baby while Dad was out of town?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, he had come on a Friday, and I think it was the following Monday was the April Fool's Day. We went down to get him. But that was a very significant memory that I remember, and I'm sure I've told Terry about the penguin before. But Daddy knew as soon as he saw that penguin lit up that was the time. We were very excited. That was the first grandchild for my folks, too. So we went straight over to their house after we got the baby, and my mother was just beside herself. She holding the baby, you know. She loved it so much, loved him so much.
So they accepted him okay, even though he came from?
No problem. My parents never winked, blinked, nothing. That was their grandchild.
All right, so they did it right.
Yeah.
So I guess Connie must have been a letdown then after that.
Why? No, then in between there I had polio.
Oh.
So I had to recover from that. And Terry was in diapers still when I had polio. And of course they brought him up to the visiting room, and I could see him up there. And I remember, I said, "Daddy, let me change his diapers," because I wanted to do that so badly. Because we had just gotten him.
Like how long did you have him before you got?
No, that was, we think that it came from St. Vincent's, the disease.
Through Terry, or maybe through the time
Terry.
you were working there?
Through Terry. There was we checked back, and they had an epidemic of polio virus at St. Vincent's. And because we got him on April Fool's Day, and the following Labor Day, we went with Shirley and Bob up to Lake Geneva over Labor Day to have a holiday together.
Right.
And that was the time that we all caught this disease, because Shirley's Donna, who was teething, you have to be in a weakened state somewhere to pick it up. Her daughter Donna got the polio virus too, at the same time I did.
Well, what was it like? I mean, how did you know you had polio? What happened?
Well, it was just, I got delirious one night. And
While you were up at the lake?
No. This was, it took about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before it germinated. And of course I didn't know it all this about Shirley at this time. She was going through her own terrible time. And at the time that I was delirious, Daddy's mother called up and said that she was by herself. She needed somebody to be with her. And of course Daddy didn't know the seriousness of my problem, so he went over and spent the night with her. And I was really in terror. I was seeing rats climbing walls and things
Polio
like
affected your mind?
Yeah. I was delirious. And
like with fever or something?
yeah. Yeah. And I was wandering around the house, and you know, I was nervous. I was cold. I was sick. I was just not feeling right. And then, of course, there was an epidemic going around that was just before the Salk vaccine came out, and Daddy or somebody called the doctor, and the doctor came out, and he tested me. One of the tests was if you could raise your leg up so high, and I couldn't. And of course, he called the ambulance right away, and Daddy had to ride the car behind. He couldn't ride in the ambulance, because it's very, very contagious. And they took me to Contagious Hospital, which was quite a ways away from where we lived anyway. And by the time I got to Contagious, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed from the waist down. And I didn't understand all this stuff. I mean, it just, people tell me not to do something, that just when I don't pay attention. And I remember they put me in bed, and I want to get out of this place. This is stupid.
I've got stuff to do.
I got up. I found myself on the floor, and I couldn't get up. And when the doctor came by, he says, "What are you trying to do? Say your prayers down there?" And I says, "I'm trying to get back in the bed." He had to pick me up because I couldn't stand. And that was when I realized that this is something a little bit more serious than a cold.
So was this like you were delirious one night, and then Daddy came back, and that
they
day...
gave me the anti-venom or anti-gamma globulin is what they gave everybody in the family. Everybody in the family had to have this gamma globulin. That is a shot that hurts. So then I found out about Shirley's Donna. Then I started patching it all together and realizing that St. Vincent's had this epidemic going on, and through diapers, was the contact. And Terry being so young and everything, he was the carrier. He didn't get it, but he was the carrier. I was so glad of that.
Yeah.
But
So Terry gave you polio, and I gave you hepatitis.
that's right. That's the way it worked. In the same hospital. You didn't think we'd learn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, of course it makes sense that I would... How come nobody sued these people? Didn't they have... Didn't they have trial lawyers then?
No. What came, what went.
So how long did it take you to, you know...
Well, I was in the Contagious Hospital for a week, and I had to use my, how do you say it? Use my, be able to go to the bathroom on myself. I know there's a fancier way of saying it, but I had to do that by myself, and I couldn't. And the doctors would say, think waterfall, think dripping water, think water. Think I didn't do any good. When you're paralyzed there, it doesn't work. So finally it did, and they transferred me to Passamaquoddy Hospital, and I was there for 6 weeks. First thought I had was getting in that car and going. I've got to get in that car and go. And of course they brought Terry to me up there. He and Granddaddy stayed at his house, his folks' house. They took care of Terry and during the day so Daddy could work. And Terry was I guess Grandpa Pizzo was trying to train Terry how to go double duty. I don't know. And Terry had this special monkey.
Mumpney?
Mumpney. Yeah, special mumpney. and Ed Pizzo was trying his best to train Terry to do this thing. So he'd wrap up brown paper and stick it down in the toilet, and then he'd put Mumpney on the toilet, and he'd say to Terry, "Oh, something he did.
Did it work?
It took Terry till he was about 3.5 years old before he caught on.
He was in diapers that long?
Oh, yeah, he was. You were longer. Oh, you were terrible.
How so? I know I went to bed, but I
you
peed my drawers during the day too?
no, not during the day, but it took you till about 5, almost 6 before you were out of night diapers.
Yeah.
But I attributed that to your beginnings. When you don't have that first love of a parent, those things affect your psyche.
Do you think they kept me in bed the whole time I was in there?
No, because you were walking, and we got you. You were,
Yeah, I've heard the story. I
17.
toddled up to Terry.
yeah, 17 months old, I think. 17 months old. Yeah, you were past a year. Almost a year and a half, yeah. Cute little fella.
Well, that's changed.
No, it hasn't.
What's the Connie story? So you had Terry, then you had polio. How long did it take you to recover, like really recover from the polio where you could get out and do stuff again?
Well, I was about ready to do fine, then I got hepatitis.
But in between there, Connie came along.
Yeah,
Right.
and we went to Disneyland. We lived in California. All those months there in California.
In Compton, right?
Yeah, Compton. And then we came back to Illinois, broke. I'm trying to think. Well, we had to. No, you weren't along yet till we were settled in our big house there. So we were in the big house on Sterling. That's when we started thinking about adopting another child. But we talked to Terry and Connie about it first. We wanted to make sure that they were in agreement. Because I said, now this little person is going to want your toys, it's going to bug you, it's going to keep you from doing the things you want to do, it's going to be crying probably a lot. And we want to know if you are in agreement to accepting this new challenge into your life. And, Connie was all for it. Terry was a little more reserved, but Connie was, they both agreed. They wanted this they wanted another brother or sister. So.
Now, how come it took you so long in Minneapolis or Minnesota to get on the list and why did that take so long? And once you came back to Chicago, it seemed to kind of.
Well, they didn't have the facilities in Minneapolis or Michigan, is what you're talking about. Michigan. In fact, I think they closed that place shortly afterwards. They just didn't have the babies there.
Oh, I see.
See, in Chicago, they had lots more babies to pick from. And as far as Connie was concerned, there was nothing really dramatic about hers. I remember receiving her in my arms. Her name was Kathy. Remember that? Very plainly, very bright, smiley face, blue eyes, lovely little girl. She was just a sweet little girl. I was very, very happy to have her. But cry, she cried if you picked her up, she cried if you put her down, she cried if you turned her around, she cried if you put her to bed, cried if you come home, cried if you took her to the bathtub. I'm telling you, she cried, all the time.
For how long?
Oh, this went on till she was about 6. Oh, she was a big crier.
Till she was about 6, huh? That's about when I came along. Wasn't it? I mean,
I guess so. Yeah, because you're.
I think there's 6 years between Connie and I.
Uh-huh. That picture that I have, that I sent you, her leading the kids in the group.
Yeah.
That's about the time that she was. I think she probably was a little older than 6. Maybe she was 7 there. can't remember. But she had to be first in line for school. She'd come home for lunch and gobble down her food, run out the door. I said, what do you have to hurry? You still got time. I want to be first in line. And she carried that through her life. I want to be first.
And she's done a pretty good job of it.
Yeah. Always want to be first. What an adventure.
Did you guys always know you wanted 4 kids?
As many as we could have. My mother used to say, you're crazy. You're crazy. Be happy with what you got. No, I don't think so. We want some more. And Daddy just went along with it. He liked kids. And it wasn't, even with polio and hepatitis, it didn't break me.
No, nothing broke you.
So I was, what almost broke me, though, was that California thing, going to California and failing there. That was before we had you.
That was the thing with Dad's brother, right?
Yeah, that was a sad situation. It was sad for Daddy. It was sad for me because I came home with the 2 kids here because we didn't have any money there, and I went to work for my dad. I was mostly gratis. He didn't need me to work, but he knew I needed the money. I stayed at my folks' house, and they were not that welcoming at that point. They were against Daddy at that point.
Were they against Daddy before you guys got married, or just
Yeah.
because he... How come?
Because he was so much older than I was.
Oh.
And in fact, my mother, when we were when we had the cleaners, I remember she said, "Why don't you divorce him?" And she
Wow.
denied that afterwards, but she told me to divorce him. You know, like we feel about Jeff and Peggy. I don't think it's right that we feel that way, and I know I could kick myself every time I say it, because you don't know what's down the road.
But that's weird to think of your mom as an old school Catholic to be...
So
saying,
she
"Why
would
don't you
come down
divorce
there,
this
sit
guy?"
with me when I worked, you know, in the cleaners. And even though Daddy was working as hard as he could work, and he was well liked,
Yeah.
everybody liked him. She said, "You should divorce him," because well, they were all for the provider, being a good provider, having enough money to do this and to buy that, and you know, all this and that. And here we were buying this house. Of course, they gave us down payment and stuff like that, but they were against Daddy. They didn't think that he was doing the job that he should have done.
How come he didn't get a job with Barker when he... Oh, because he failed in California. They weren't going to give him another chance.
Well, he worked at Barker. He worked in the office. Came and worked in the office.
After California?
Yeah. Yeah, and he was traveling also in Michigan and Ohio. And he'd come home on weekends. I don't know if this is the right chronology, though. This is before we had the cleaners. We lived in the basement of the Luella Apartments. And he came back, and we were getting ready to move to Michigan on Valentine's Day. It must have been a birthday for somebody, getting ready for a birthday. Connie's birthday both Terry and Connie's birthday was in March, so it couldn't have been for that. But I know I had Valentine decorations all over the basement. And I was not a happy camper. I was not happy at all, because Daddy was gone most of the time. And he came back this one weekend, and he was supposed to have been looking in Michigan for a place for us to live. And he says, "I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to move." And I breathed a sigh of relief, because I didn't want to move either. Neither one of us had voiced the opinion that we didn't want to go. And he says, I have to tell your dad I'm going to quit. So I said, well, what are we going to do? He says, I'll drive a cab. That's what he started driving a cab for a cab company right there in the corner, Checker Cab or something like that, parked right there on the Walla. And he sold New York Life Insurance too, which was not too successful, but that made him stay out at night, and we stayed in that basement, which I didn't like too well because Terry and Connie both got the measles there, and the doctor had to come visit us down that horrible, dark gangway where rats go up and down the stairs. And I bet the doctor thought that we were matter with it, yeah. But anyway, we finally moved from there to, where did we move to? Well, I think we started the cleaners then.
What did you start the cleaners with?
Shoe leather. Daddy took one side, I took the other side of the streets in Flossmoor, where we knew people, and they knew us. And we fixed the car, the back of the car that we had, with a rack on it, so we could hang clothes on it. And when we collect the dirty clothes from people, then he'd take it over to this cleaners on 79th Street and something or other near South Chicago. And then they'd do the cleaning for us, and then we'd pick it up and we'd bring it back. And then every day we'd pick one side, I'd take, the other side he'd take, a kid in each hand. And I guess people felt sorry for us. Next thing you know, there was the cleaners open right there on Flossmoor Road, or not Flossmoor Road, but whatever street that was.
Right, the big street with Myrtle on one end.
Yeah, that's right. So we opened up that. We were doing very, very well. We lived upstairs. That was there was an apartment upstairs. And his mother, by that time Ed Pizzola died, his mother moved up next door to us. She was in another apartment up there. Moved all that heavy furniture there. And Anna the maid came to stay with his mother.
Whose maid was Anna? His mom's?
His mom's. And she was our, she was a wonderful person, black lady, wonderful person. So we did that for several years, and it was in between time we got you. And then from there we moved to the big house on Sterling.
So did we get Peg when we were already on Sterling or over the cleaners?
On Sterling.
Because, you know, if you think about it, there wasn't that long between the time you got me and the time you got Peg. Because if I was a year and a half old, and I'm 2 years older than Peg, you guys didn't have me but more than 6 months before Peg came along.
Yeah, it wasn't very long that we got Peg, and I don't know why we were in such a big hurry. I mean, we weren't wealthy by any means, but we did have that big house, and I guess maybe we wanted to fill it.
Glad you didn't get a mansion.
We were nuts. I mean, the spur of the moment kind of thing, you know, is what we did all the time. I guess that's what made our parents worried about it. It's something like what Peg does. Spur of the moment kind of thing.
It certainly occurred to me with her taking in all the strays and the kids and the dogs. She's kind of following, you know.
It's funny, isn't it? It really is kind of weird that she's doing it the same way, and I can understand her feelings.
But you've also been down this road before.
Yeah. Well, now you've got your story.
Well, I think that was a pretty good start. Ooh, I think Captain America was in the frame too.
Captain America, how does he get in there?
Riding the bananas.
Right.